Hey guys, I told you we were going to get down and dirty in the next video. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about fuel, filters, and tanks, and how to get massive amounts of water out of your tank. We all know we can go drain the little petcocks, right? When you change your fuel filters and stuff. And that'll get, if you got a very small quantity of water in your tank, in your filter, or in your tank, it'll get that out. But what I'm talking about is huge amounts of water. Like in 2016 August down here in Louisiana, we had a massive flood, and we had service stations completely covered with water. Well, you know how the bungs, where they fuel up put the diesel in the tanks, and gasoline is in the sitting there almost flush on the concrete, and of course water was covering all of that, so those bungs don't hold very well, and they got a lot of water in those diesel tanks. And my daughter got 2 cars full of diesel as a result of that. I say full, probably a third of a tank was water. And I went over there and helped her with the guy. I drew a sample, had water in it, because the guy was telling her, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with my fuel. I check it every day." Well, he didn't. He was wrong about that, and I proved it to him. And also, if that ever happens to you, the Department of Agriculture has a division just for fuel quality, and they will really help you out. And I contacted those guys, and because their job is to go to those service stations and monitor the stations and make sure that they are checking their fuel tanks every day for water, or they have one of those monitors on the pump itself that looks for water. And nowadays you don't have much problem with that. I never get drops of water. I should check for water more often, but I never do. I mean, I should, but I don't. And because for me, it's been all or nothing. It's been massive amounts or none at all. And under normal situations, that's usually the case. Now, I've heard of people getting drops of water and stuff in their filter when they drain, and that happens. So anyway, what we're going to do today is address the situation that we spoke about, which is, what do you do if you end up with, say a third of a tank or half a tank, whatever. Hopefully you'll be at the service station when you get the light. And Ram has an excellent setup, because their water separator filter, which is the one in the back here, is right close to the tank. So there's a good chance when you crank it, if you got some bad fuel, then you may get the light before you get out of the service station, and then you can, first of all, talk to the person that owns the station, and then second of all, if you want to deal with it yourself, or if you just somewhere in the middle of nowhere and that happens to you, and you have no recourse but to handle it yourself. If they're going to take responsibility and stuff, I guess I would probably just call a flatbed and say take it to the dealer. But there are circumstances where sometimes we just have to deal with things ourselves. In fact, more than not, most of the people that I've talked to that's had just gobs of water in their tank, they ended up having to pay the bill on those things. It's very difficult to prove after the fact. If you can catch it right there close to when it happened, then yeah, you got an excellent chance to prove it. But you've got to prove it. What I did is I brought a clear plastic jug over there, and I had that guy come out and say, "Watch this now," and we pumped a gallon, and about a third of it was water. So he had no leg to stand on that, and we were able to get those 2 cars fixed. It cost about $6,000, because what happened is she drove all the way home, and she didn't get the light until she was backing into the garage, which was about probably better than a mile, 2 miles maybe, before that water actually hit the filter and the light. And that's why I say our Rams are set up much better than that, because we're right on the tank. And so there's a much better chance that we could spot that before we leave there. And even if you had to deal with it yourself, which is what I'm going to show you how to do today, at least how I would do it, you know, you could do it. There's really no telling if this will ever happen to you. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, this is going to be the procedure that you'd probably want to go through first off. And this will probably get you back on the road. And so let's go ahead and proceed with that and go from there. Okay, so before we start, let's get oriented a little bit anyway, or at least talk about this tank a little bit. You notice this little indentation right here. Well, that's where the fuel module is, and your in-tank pump right in there. So if we was to look at this tank from the top, if you was to drop the tank, this is where the bottom of it is. It's sucking pretty close to the bottom of the tank. And if you brought this thing, what we're going to do today is pretty much standard procedure. This is what Dodge would do, Ram, excuse me, if you brought it into them and had a tank full of water. They wouldn't drop the tank unless you told them to. They're just going to drain it out like we're going to do today. And although we're not going to drain the tank, but kind of go through the motions of it. But this is a long tank, as you can see, and it's got a lot of indentions in it. I don't know if you can see way over here, but it's got a lot of places where you could get you know, water trapped from say from this section to over here and stuff. So you know, it's going to be a person's personal preference whether they feel like they want to drop the tank. There's also some additives that can be added to deal with water. As I say, the tank can be dropped. I've heard of people actually removing the bed as opposed to dropping the tank, but that seems like that would be too extreme. Most people just put a floor jack under here or a transmission jack, say like a 2x6, running all the way across, because it's a very long tank to support it. You'd want it empty as possible when you do that, and you'd want to use the in-tank pump to pump it down. Okay, so that's what that is. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the fuel pump on, and the way we're going to do that is to put the key fob in the truck and put the truck on run, and that's going to pressurize this filter. Now you can hook a hose to here, but anybody who's ever changed that back fuel filter knows that it's going to leak up here on the valve itself too. So I'm going to try it a little bit differently today with a funnel up over this like that, so that I can catch that leakage. And I got some cardboard and some rags, and but it's probably going to get messy. But I'm going to try to do it this way, and then we'll catch it into this clear bucket so we can kind of simulate what we do on the road, kind of something like that. And then we'll see what we get in the jug, And if it's clear and no water, then we're good to go, right? And if you had a lot of water in your tank, that's what you would do. Now another option is to remove the inlet line coming into the filter itself and drain it all before it gets to the filter. And there's your lines are over here on this side, and it'd be a little bit hard to get to. My plan would be to go ahead and drain, and then replace the filter, and then check the front one. So let's go ahead and do that right now, and we'll see how this works. You see, see the flow we're getting out of here. I just shut it back off, but we can do it again. So yeah, you gotta have just about got to have that thing wide open to get anything out of it. But you see, it'll run for a good while, and you could be checking for water. I'll go ahead and shut it off. After a while, I believe it'll shut itself down by itself, and then you'd have to cycle the ignition again. But you know, a little price to pay for being able to get water out of your tank. The dealer has a tool that can they use to start and stop the pump. I don't know if they can override that switch that shuts it down or not. Okay, so now, as you can see, I've got my container sitting on a block there, and you can't see it, but my drain hose is connected to the bottom of the primary filter in the front, and I put that in a long time ago just to make it easier to you know, to drain that front. And I'll put my link up there if you're interested in that. But let's go ahead and put the ignition on, and we're going to do the same thing now. Okay, the ignition's on, and we're going to run a little diesel into that tub there, and I hope I got it lined up right. And you'd want to, the reason you'd want to do this is because if there was any fluid that you missed, just check, make sure we're getting, yeah, it's going in. So the reason, this is pretty uneventful because you can't see it, but the reason you'd want to do the front is to purge any water that was trapped in between the two filters. Okay guys, so that's the drill for the front. It's about the same. You're gonna have to cycle your pump on and off like I was doing to, you know, make the fuel pump in the tank continue to operate. And you know, it'll pump a little and then it'll shut down. I'm not sure why, but I'll investigate that and see if there's a way around that. But nonetheless, you can see that we got what, over a half gallon of diesel out of it, and you'd never be able to do that just by opening up your petcocks, you know, and letting it drain. And this is a much safer way because you're not having to crank your engine, and you can do this on your front and rear filters until you're comfortable that you've got all the water out of it. And you know, then you should be able to crank your truck and head on down the road. I realize this is something that no one wants to do on the road, but I just thought it would be something that everyone needs to know that they can do if they want to. I can assure you that all of the diesel that you see there will be disposed of properly according to all local ordinances and EPA regulations. I think I have an anthill in the backyard. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching my video. And until next time, adios.